I might find somebody worthy. The spotlight stays. Hi, my name is Grace and welcome back to my space. Hey everybody, how are you doing? Honestly, I hope you're doing better than I am. So, one, I just want to start off by saying 2 videos in 3 months. Call me Jackie Aina because it's giving YouTuber. This is the most consistent I've been since 2020. Everyone applaud. Yeah, they canceled Gossip Girl. Like, it's not funny. But like, who was lying? Because y'all was acting like you was watching that show, but when the numbers came in, interesting. Yeah, I lost my job. That was tough. I mean, like, you know, we make jokes and we hee hee ha ha, and I did see so many tweets being like, I've never seen a cast as happy to have their show canceled like Gossip Girl. Listen, y'all, nobody likes to be unemployed. It's just nice to make jokes when you're depressed and you no longer can afford a therapist. But that is actually why I'm here, because you know what? I was gonna go do my skincare content, but honestly, I'm not really in a skincare content place, you know, like in here. And me and my friends were, you know, chit-chatting, and it came up that online, my network is written as $362,000. Bitch, where? I saw that and I went, you know what? I am gonna get back into the YouTube thing, and I'm gonna do a get ready with me because all your faves are lying. And I think I'm just gonna come here, and I decided I was gonna do my makeup because makeup's the only therapy I can afford right now, and be honest about what it's actually like to work and what it's like to go through everything that I've gone through. And yeah, ain't nobody made $362,000 a month. Anybody got, come on now, girls. I think what is really fascinating is that I think there is actually a very clear difference between perceived success and like what actually in reality happens. And I thought, I was like, you know, I decided I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna do my makeup, and I'm gonna chat to my people in my space, because that's what I do and that's what makes me feel good. And I find that maybe talking out like what all this has been like for me might be a little bit of inspiration for you guys. And I got so many comments of people being like, you know, I want to be an actress with blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, let's do a little honesty hour and I do my makeup. Yeah, so welcome to Get Ready with Me. My show got canceled. So starting right off, I need to do my edges so I can lay them down. Lately, I don't know, I talked about it on TikTok, but which I'm also starting to do. You know, you got a lot of time to do the things you normally don't do when you lose your job against your will. But lately, Got to Be Glue has been doing it for me, guys. In terms of edges, it's really just because, I don't know if you can tell, I have 4C hair. And all them edge controllers that y'all be talking about are lying. And the only one that really means it is Got to Be. Got to Be, I don't even think it was designed to be an edge controller. I don't know. I honestly feel like maybe she is the most multi-purpose product of all time, because I, for my whole life, had been using this to lay wigs. And never in a million years did I also think like, hey, if it lays your wig, it probably lays them unruly edges. And yeah, it does. Because like, you know, you don't always have to lay your edges, but I just feel like with braids, if you let your edges run rampant when you're trying to give a cute, slick look, it just kind of looks messy in a way that, I don't know, it doesn't really work. It just looks unkempt. You know what I mean? Like, ain't nothing wrong with my natural edges. I do love, you know, my kinky curls. But it just kind of feels like with braids, it just ages them so much more when you don't have your edges done. But look how nice that is. Okay, enough with the Got to Be commercial. Here is the tea. Here is the gag. I think online, I've noticed this thing where nowadays, if your trajectory in life is not a straight line going up, right? Like, you failed. There is this weird narrative and this weird energy of that, right? Where it's like, oh, you booked a TV show one time, that means you're a millionaire forever. And that means every single other thing in life is now super easy, and now you're famous. Which is like not true. Like, I wish people understood how much I don't get recognized for being in that show. It's so funny, but I'm like, you guys, first of all, y'all didn't even watch the show enough to give the show a third season. Second of all, let's be honest, you guys were not checking for the melanated new girl who only got to perform as somebody's best friend. Like, let's y'all weren't checking for it, which is fine. Can't change the past, but because of that, like, I feel like so many people like had this envision in my life online, just discourse that made it seem like, I was going to be living this princess fairy tale. And I do think to a degree, some of that fairy tale was sold to me. And I think the hardest thing, and I wish more people talked about it when they talk about like what it's actually like to try to come up, what it's like to come up in any industry. It's not always a straight line, right? Like, it's not always just you get what you want and how you want it. Like, there was a lot of promises of what this experience was going to be like, and it wasn't like that. And I think I felt this pressure to make it seem like that, right? And I think that pressure has kind of weighed on me a lot more recently, and it's kind of why I wanted to do still an uplifting video, but like kind of come on here and be like, hey, it's not always all that it seems, and that's okay, right? Like, my experience being a series regular for the first time, to be honest, wasn't what I thought or envisioned ever that would be like. I never in a million years thought what my experience would be like that. I think for me, I definitely envisioned that like being a series regular came with all these crazy perks, and like normally they do. But in my case, when they didn't, I started to internalize that. I started to internalize it as it's like, there's X, Y, and Z things wrong with me. Now, there's plenty of things wrong with society that probably contributed to why I left that experience and needing a therapist expeditiously. But for the most part, I was internalizing things that really had nothing to do with me. And it just happened to be what it was. Before anybody says anything, yes, I burned myself. And so this is like, my face is like scarred now. And we're just gonna have to think it's cute. Yeah, I burned myself here too. So please ignore the burns, okay? Don't look at them. I know I just pointed them out, but don't look at them. I'm gonna cover up one of them very soon. Also, forewarning, throwing this out there, this is gonna be a long video. I'm not even gonna I'm gonna edit this, but I'm not even gonna really try to make it that edited down. This is gonna be a long video. Watch if you want, don't watch. This is just about having an honest space to kind of talk about some of the things I've learned in this industry. Now, as I was saying, yeah, I think the biggest thing I was promised was the idea that it's like, oh my God, your life is going to change overnight. And I think to a degree, and I really say this to every young Black girl who dreams of being in this industry, who especially looks like me, things might not come that easy for you. It is not your fault. It is not a reflection of you. It is not a reflection of anything you're missing. You are not the problem in that. So if things don't come as easily for you as you saw it come for your peers, it is not a reflection of you. Yeah, if I could go back in time, I would say that to myself every day, probably from the moment I booked this show. I think that would be something I would constantly try to remind myself, because that was something that I forgot pretty often. And it really does mess with your head, because this is an industry of comparison, right? Like fame, clout, all those kinds of attentions. Like, we're in the era of the overnight blow up. We're in the era of, you didn't hear about the girl on Tuesday, she on everybody's For You page on Monday the following week. And because of that, like, we have kind of lost the sight of, like, it is a marathon. Like, I'd always, prior to booking Gossip Girl, I was always like, it's a marathon, not a race. It's a marathon, not a race. It's a marathon, not a race. And now here I am, and I find myself really struggling to believe that. And I think it's because for a time there, while everything was happening with Gossip Girl, I stopped thinking it was a marathon. I started thinking, oh, this is the destination. I made it, right? Because this is how it works in today's society. Like, you have one thing, it blows you up, and it sustains you forever, and then you sustain in that, and now you never have to go back to anything that was reminiscent of the old. And if you don't manage to do that, you're a failure. Everything I used to genuinely believe, that like this is the beginning of so much more, and it's only one step, went out the window, because I was like, all of a sudden I was in this mindset of comparison, and I was like, okay, I did the thing, so I should have everything. And then I'd look at other people and I'd be like, well, they have it, why not me? And I was internalizing everything. You guys. Like, it's hard not to compare yourself to others. It's also hard not to compare yourself when you're one of one, right? I was brought as a very specific representation that was needed, right? And like, I'm not just saying that like to spill tea or something. It's like pretty just like it is what it is. And essentially an article came out saying, where are the dark-skinned young girls on TV? Gossip Girl was cited as a show that had failed to do this. The creative team felt that they needed to fix that and rectify that and reckon with that. And then, boop, you met Chan, right? So like, it's pretty like traceable that I was brought for that reason. But it also meant like that identity, being the only one, I was gonna find myself in positions where I felt really isolated. And I felt really, at times, left behind, purely because I was visually seeing things shake for other people that I was like, that's not shaking for me, you know what I mean? I remember when I first got on set, cast members like being like, yo, like, so what's the first brand deal you want? And I was like, what? They'd be like, oh yeah, like when we first got on the show, the minute they announced us, we was getting X, Y, and Z. They was cutting check over here. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like, wow, like it's all about to be different. Baby, ain't nobody called. Anybody called. And looking back now, that's okay, because my journey is my own. And the calls are gonna come. They're just gonna come when they need to come from my own time. But like at the time, and then in the subsequent year, I'd come home and I'd feel so empty. Like even with all my talent, I was like, what am I not bringing to the table? Like I felt so willing to bring whatever anyone needed of me to the table at any point. And yet I couldn't even access certain rooms that my peers had accessed. And then they were waiting for me to access, you know what I mean? They came in, they were like, oh, of course it applies that way for everybody. It doesn't? And it was something I was afraid to talk about. Because almost like I convinced myself that if I talked about it, it meant like it wasn't gonna ever happen to me, which is not true. This is like such the beginning of my career. And I think part of the reason why I want, and I might make this a series where I get ready and I talk about aspects of being a flourishing actor and like starting your career. is because there's not enough conversation about like the buildup anymore. You know what I mean? It just feels so much like everything needs to happen overnight. And if it doesn't happen overnight, you feel so left behind. There was a moment when the show got canceled. I remember, like, I mean, you guys thought we were laughing on Twitter. I just want you to know, nobody was laughing in real life. But there was a moment when the show got canceled where I'm like, you know, in a state of depression. Keaton Henson, and for my depressed girls who know who Keaton Henson is, you know. Keaton Henson is playing in the background, right? Like, I am like in a state of inconsolable, right? I'm like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna keep my lights on? Like, what the heck? The feeling of like I had stability before this job, right? Like I was a PA, but I was a stable PA. Like I knew knew where my money was coming from and when, right? I had all the stability coming into this job, and then I sacrificed the stability from my life for the promises I was told, and now I feel left behind. And there was a moment where I sat and I was like looking and like just sort of reflecting on all the memories and all the conversations and all the promises, and realizing a lot of them hadn't come to fruition. And then thinking like, oh my God, this was my only chance and I wasted it. And like, you have to sit with that. You have to sit with that feeling. And then later on having to really sit with myself and like meditate with myself and be like, no, that's not actually how life works. And it wasn't until like I had gone to my dad to get a little life inspiration. And he had said to me, he was like, Grace, life is a slingshot. And when you need to launch a slingshot, you have to pull it as far back as possible. You are in the pullback of your life, which means that it's scary and you do not know how far back they will pull you. But just know when they let go, and they will let go, just know when they let go, you are launched to heights you've never seen. And just know that, understand that every time a slingshot wishes to be launched, it has to be pulled back. The biggest thing about being an actor is sustenance and like sticking through with it and like staying afloat, stay alive, right? Like stay alive. And it's really hard to do that if you kind of get caught in this mindset of like, I was supposed to launch and never, ever, ever look back. That's not how life ever works. And I do think we are in a generation of where people only want to share the stories. We're so obsessed with sharing only the positives. We're so obsessed with sharing, like, inspiring people, only talking about the good, that we actually rob ourselves from the inspiration we can give to people by being a little bit more honest than that, by sharing some of the bad, by sharing, like, in this moment that I'm doing my makeup, my life does not look like how I envisioned my life would look post Gossip Girl. I mean, I signed a 6-season contract. I didn't even think post Gossip Girl would be right now, right? And so here I am in this moment doing my eyeshadow for you guys, chatting and you know, trying to be my authentic self. And even in this moment, there are really dark times happening. And I think rather than pretending this is not part of my journey this early on, and then giving y'all a self-help book in 25 years where I happen to mention, like, oh, by the way, that time was awful. I'd rather just be like, yeah, this time's not great. And I'm gonna make it out of it. And y'all get to witness all of that, right? You get to quite literally witness somebody's come up. But I hope that in being honest in this moment, anybody else who can relate to any of the things I'm talking about, right? Like any of the feelings of like, I thought my life was going to do one thing and we were on our way and then it stopped doing that thing, can understand that, baby, you are just in the pullback. Please do not give up. I say that both to myself and to y'all, right? Because I've been saying this from the beginning, like, this is my space. So I view you guys, I call them my loyal 40. I view you guys as kind of extensions as myself, of like, you know, y'all the 40 people that I have been being grace for now 3 years. Not consistently, but I've been coming. And so I'm very big on like, I don't want to come in here and tell y'all anything that's not a truth. And yeah, this is tough, but just hang in there. And it is okay to be in the pullback of your life, right? Ain't nobody made $362,000. Well, let me shut up. I did not make no $362,000 off Gossip Girl. I'm not talking about the faves. I'm not going to talk about anybody else's bank account. I think you guys can Google how much Black women get paid in comparison to others, and you can kind of put 2 and 2 together there. But I personally did not get paid no. And I think for me, I don't want to even let that narrative sit there. I really don't. And I really think a big part of the reason why I'm like, no, I don't want that narrative out there is because I don't want anybody, especially young creatives, to think that like if things don't immediately do what you need them to, what you were promised they would do. It's not just what you need, what you were promised. A promise is simply that. People can promise you a lot of things. And they will. You want to be in this industry? Let me tell you something right now. People are going to promise you the world. They will. And just know most of the time they will not deliver. So do not let the loss of promises stop you from your promise, your heavenly promise of what you are going to be. Don't do that. Don't do that. Again, talking to myself and talking to y'all, don't do that. Don't do that, because there are brighter days to come always. There are brighter days to come always. And I think sometimes if we use social media to sometimes be a little bit more real and a little bit more like, hey, I do think we could help each other out a lot. Now, I don't know what this eyeshadow is doing. I'm really just talking. Like, I'm so focused on talking that every now and then I look at my face and I'm like, now, girl, what is this look? Anyway. Yeah. Okay. So, let's kind of get into the nittier grittier and the, honest to a degree. Because I'm going to be honest, there are a lot of aspects of my experience while being on Gossip Girl that I will just simply not be sharing right now. There are things that occurred that you will have to buy the tell-all book when I'm 45. And it's going to be juicy, so sit tight. But yeah, there's just aspects that it's like, I don't think it's anybody's business till I process my own business. So, and I'm also, the last thing I want is this video to be tea for any drama fodder. Because I think it goes a lot deeper than that, always. And so yeah, so if you clicked on this video to watch me roast anybody or expose anybody, that's not this video. That video is years from now. So don't even ask. Don't try to insinuate. It's not coming now. It'll come, but it's not coming anytime soon. So, leave it where it lies, okay? But what I will say, I'm really just doing anything. Like, this look is nonsensical. Anyways, I think one of the hardest parts about today's industry is how much we don't want to acknowledge how colorism factors into kind of everything that happens. And by not acknowledging it, we are low-key gaslight. Like, the people who actually experience colorism on a kind of like daily basis in work and whatever are being gaslit into thinking like that is not what's happening. But it is what's happening, right? Like, it's just like, it kind of almost gets to the point where it's like, there's no hard feelings. Let's just call it what it is, right? Like, people always ask me, they're like, you know, like, I mean, I know now that Gossip Girl is over. Like, oh, you just get back into auditions and, you know, the next thing. Baby, ain't nobody stopped auditioning. I don't know who told you that my black ass would have stopped auditioning for any reason. I am a theater actor, right? Like, I started this whole desire to put myself through this emotional distress of this industry. I was like a fetus baby. Like, I am from the school of like, all you do is audition. All you do is get told no. Like, that is where I'm from, that camp, right? So ain't no way I was gonna get a series regular and I was just gonna stop working. Like, you guys, it's not that simple. And I will be a little frank in that, like, opportunities are far and wide. However, opportunities in terms of the ease in which they come, in terms of the hustle which you gotta do to get them, it's not far and wide, baby. It doesn't work that way. It's not to say that anyone, and I don't know other people's life, but it's not to say I know of any person in my life that has gotten an opportunity they weren't undeserving of, because that's not true, right? Like, the people I keep around, them's is talented. I don't care what you look like. However, on a structural, I'm really talking about like the structural thing about it. Even in terms of attention, I remember somebody tagged me, and I don't know why y'all be tagging people in these kind of sneak dissy tweets, because I'm like, to this day, I ask myself, I'm like, did she mean to wreck my feelings like this, or was she trying to make me feel like, I don't know what she thought she was doing, but somebody tweeted me directly, and they were like, they quoted something Josh is our showrunner. They quoted something Josh had said, talking about like, he was like asking people to watch the show, which y'all didn't. Asking people to watch the show. And she tweeted, she was like, you know, we're 100% going to a cancellation, right? She's like, we're 100% on her, Gossip Girl's 100% on her way to cancellation. There's no hype. And the newest series regular, Grace Stewart, can't even get to 10K on Instagram. And I was like, baby, yeah, but why'd you tag me in it? This is really... Do y'all think we don't look at our tweets? I think I've said this on Twitter, actually. If I don't respond to your tweets, Instagram stories is different, because, or Instagram message is different, because I really don't go in there. I tried going in there, things got crazy. But like, it's like, Twitter, I can see it. Baby, I can see it. Like, Twitter is literally set up in a way that even if you didn't want to see it, bitch, you finna see it. So like, I don't really know what her intention was with tweeting that, or their intention, or his intention. I really don't know the identity of this person and what their plan was. But I remember feeling so like, oh, you gagged me a bit. Like, no, I remember feeling gagged. Like, truly gagged, because I just didn't even know what. I was like, well, damn. I mean, yeah, but you ain't got to say it like that. This was like early December, whatever. So I contact somebody in production, in the crew that I was like cool with. And I hit him up and I was like, yo, is this, like, are we done for? And I mean, we were, but at the time he was like, nah, like, if it's based off of views, we have more views than last season. And I was like, oh, okay. So what y'all are saying is the girls are watching, they're just not checking for the dark-skinned girl in this cast. Well, that don't feel very good. And I just sat with it. And like, you know what? In that girl's defense, like, anybody was watching the show, and maybe she was white. People just weren't watching the show, so they weren't like interested in like my platforms in that regard, because they weren't really watching the show. But I just remember feeling like it was a gut punch in the heart. because it was like you're so proud of something and you're like, oh no, like, are we not doing well? And somebody's like, oh, we're doing great. It's you they don't care about. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I mean, you know, I'll give them this. Shan wasn't really written to be seen all that often. She was written to be heard, right? You heard her. She wasn't really written to be seen, if that makes sense. So I was like, okay, I'll give him that. But at the same time, like, that was like a note that they had gotten with a couple people, where a couple important characters, audiences had felt like they weren't being written to really be seen. And those people didn't have that problem. And then you're sitting there and you're like, okay, what separates me from my peers? Is this a pattern we as a society do? It is. Okay. It was heavy. It was really heavy. Because it's like, I'm not really the type of person to care about like, oh, I thought I was gonna be my famous hair and I wasn't, or anything like that. It more had to do with the fact I was like, that lack of attention in that way is gonna mean opportunities that is gonna be available to my peers that last year we spent all that time chatting like, Grace, which one do you want? I'm not gonna get it. I mean, my team, I guess this is the first, in my opinion, what feels like actual tea. Me and my team, Instagram didn't want to verify me for y'all for 3.5 months. That is the most first generation sentence I've ever said in my entire life. Apologies. But it's true. Instagram, they rejected me for 3 months. They even rejected me when HBO sent it. I said, and I'm not going to look too far into it because there's so many reasons. Whatever. I'm not here to speculate. But when you're dealing with that behind the scenes, and then you're getting messages like that in front of, like, it starts to weigh. It starts to weigh. It does. Like, I'm not even gonna sit here and pretend that at that point, I felt like I was on solid ground, because at that point, it was really tough because it hadn't been an easy production for me, and it hadn't been an easy filming process for me. And I had been so ready. I'd been so ready to reap some of those superficial benefits to make it a little bit more worth it, all the other things that I went through that didn't feel that great, right? I'd been so ready to reap some of that. And here I was not reaping it. And I was like, oh God, great, okay. And like, I say this because I'm like going on such random tangents, but I say this only because like, I had to sit with myself a lot through the process of this and be like, it's systematic. It's not you. I want everyone to know, like, if you are a beautiful chocolate actress out there, you're gonna have your moment. The things that will come as a result of you being a beautiful chocolate girl out there aren't always gonna feel good. But you aren't alone. Oh my goodness, I felt so alone. Because there were certain things that I just didn't even want to talk to. Even my closest castmates, I didn't want to talk to them about it. Because I felt bad. I felt bad that something that had made their life so wonderful was really hurting me. And I didn't want that energy. Like, I didn't want them to have to deal with that energy. I didn't. And I felt bad that like some of these systems that were just doing what they were doing, because that's what the systems are in place, were hurting me, and it was causing harm from people that I objectively thought were really great people. And it got really isolating because I just couldn't, like, I couldn't be the one to tell them. Like, I could not be the one to look these people who were so happy, whose lives had transformed and be like, yo, mine's doing a lot of regressing here. It's doing a lot of regressing. One of the first really bad instances of colorism that I think that kind of set the tone for everything that I was going to experience with. Wait, hold on. Before I finish the story, I'm just going to put my lashes on because I'm not going to do that on camera. Hold on. BRB. Okay, lashes are on. We're back. Okay, back to my story. So one of the biggest experiences of colorism, I think that, I mean, okay, there's quite a few, but one of the biggest ones that I will say happened when the first paparazzi photos came out of my character. Oh, I'm not even gonna pull them up. If you want to see them, go ahead and Google, because they were taking photos all day. The photos that came out, I said, y'all really took the most hit photos you could. I promise I'm much cuter than that. Hello? And Lord, here came the comments. I mean, people said all types of crazy things. Right? You know, people are like, no, Lord, Zoya going to the ghetto. Here goes Zoya heading to the hood. All this stuff. Which, if you watch season 2, you know, not gonna hold it against anybody. If you watch season 2, you would know, like, Shan is very wealthy. And that was actually something about Shan I knew at the time, right? I knew season 1 going in, this was a very rich girl. She was just, you know, like Denzel Washington, she's leaving here with something. That's it. Ain't no malice behind it. She not no criminal mastermind. She just leaving here with a little something. And y'all can't sit out here and pretend like y'all don't be doing that too. Come on now. Come on. I didn't think people would automatically assume that Shan was rich. I also didn't think people would automatically assume she wasn't. But it was the terminology that was used meant to be an insult, right? Like people were so mad that they felt like their sweet, innocent Zoya was gonna, like, based off of the appearance of this girl, was gonna, like, she was gonna be a bad example. And, like, Shan wasn't a great example, but you know what? No one was a good example of that damn show. Max was sleeping with the teacher. Like, y'all be acting like Shan took Zoya to the trenches. She did things that even I we'll talk, but she did things that even I didn't want her to do. But, like, y'all really made it seem like it was this whole thing, and it really wasn't, right? A lot of people misgendered me, which I think there was 2 things that bothered me about that. One, I'm very adamant that non-binary and trans actors, like, you know, like in all the other, like, people should be allowed to tell their own stories. But that community is so marginalized. They can't get, like, as an actor, it, like, breaks my heart thinking about my peers who are that marginalized and they can't get work. I can't get work because I'm already 10 shades too dark for them. Imagine them. Imagine my non-binary and trans, like, dark-skinned black peers. They have it even worse than me. And so I felt so, like, almost like insulted that y'all, like, I'm like, in fairness, y'all don't know me, but y'all think I would do that. Like, I would take a role that was meant to be non-binary or trans from somebody who identified in that way. Like, that didn't sit well in my spirit. 2, what about her was giving masculine to even put that in question? Like, we as a society are so weird about what gender rules are and what each gender gets to do what, and it's like we're already really bad about it, right? Like, you should be allowed to dress however you want and it just be an expression of yourself. It does not need to be anything more than that, and you shouldn't have to be confined to the rules of whatever, right? You should be allowed to do what you want to do. But I was looking at Shan and I was like, these photos, now I'll admit the makeup looked different, but this girl got press-ons, lashes, a full face, skirts in a boot. We were filming in the summer, but we're filming winter scenes. That's why they dress like the winter. Why is everybody saying she's masculine? Why is everybody saying it's like we asked for a feminine dark-skinned girl and this is what we get? You are getting a feminine dark-skinned girl, right? What is not feminine about that? Oh, the skin tone. Right. The skin tone isn't feminine. Not to them. We as a society, colorism can be explained really simply. We as a society associate lighter skin, fairer skin with feminine ideals, feminine things. Like, that's what we as a society do. We associate masculine things with darker skin. It is why we all sat there in Creed 3. And if you haven't, you will. Sat there in Creed 3 and we looked at the men and we said, right. But it's also at the same time that women came. Those women emulated some of those same aspects, but because it was on women, it was not as easily accepted. That's how colorism, that is the basis of why colorism happens the way it happened. It's why you hear light-skinned rappers be like, y'all always if colorism was real, then why is everybody treating me like I'm soft? I think you just answered your own question, right? So oftentimes the people who are feeling the brunt of it are women, and not just Black women, women in any category who are darker. It does not matter what race, because colorism is global. Women in any category who are darker, they are the ones who really tend to feel the brunt of it. So I'm sitting here, and the first paparazzi photos ever of my entire life have just come out. And I already want to throw up because it's like, oh, it's happening. Like, I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, like, am I going to be able to go outside? Like, what is my whole life? It's funny, but that was like a genuine thing that I was like, oh my God, like, they're gonna recognize me. Girl, ain't nobody checking. Like, that was just kind of where my brain had went, because also my brain had inflated what this whole experience was gonna be. And then before I could even worry about like, oh, will they recognize me in the street? I was inundated with just feeling like, well, that doesn't. Oh, I thought I was cute, and I actually thought I liked how I look in Bantu knots, and I don't feel like I exhibit masculine anything. I'm actually a very feminine, inherently really feminine person, and I just topsy-turvy, and I didn't have nobody to talk to about it. Because I think in that situation, it's like, who am I gonna say, right? I think there was one time we talked about that kind of stuff and said, and for the most of the cast, it was just like, wait, people are racist to you? Because their experience looks so much more sunshine and roses, which is also part of the reason why I didn't want to bring the mood down and be like, yeah, they are and they have been. I will say, for every comment that was not kind, there were many people who voiced what I just said and was like, y'all are being colorist, stop being colorist, this colorist, blah, blah. But when you're a young woman and you're being perceived for the first time as appreciated, I mean, I appreciated every nice comment, and I do, like, y'all keep me going. It is, the mean ones are really unshakable at times. And so that kind of set the tone. And then it was like, texture wars in terms of hair, right? My hair was always a bit more of a conversation, and the conversation was never really productive. My hair, like, I found Shan, even though as a character is really free and unlimited in what her hairstyles could do, because of the limitations of what the behind the scenes could handle with my hairstyles. Because, we had different teams for season 1, season 2. I think because of the limitations, you then found that the limitlessness of that role could not be portrayed through hair like I originally would have hoped. Because I'm not the one doing it. And I think looking back, I think something I would change is I think I would be a little bit less scared of my voice and be a little bit less scared of being labeled as aggressive or anything like that, and just say, like, y'all don't know how to do this style, I'm gonna do it. Tell me what you want with her hair and I'll do it. I know it sounds crazy, like, it sounds like really messed up, like, it's like, but you shouldn't have to. Okay, but I do. So I think looking back, I'm kind of like in a mindset of like, I wish I had the confidence to be seen as anything but genial. I was so scared of being seen as anything but genial on that set at all times. I mean, the way I was code switching with my girl, because I would be on set with Baby Boo, and you know, me and her, we just doing whatever. Other people come around, the code is switching, because I was like, the things she can see me say, I can't let y'all see that, because y'all gonna almost like go back to what had happened when the paparazzi photos. You guys are gonna pigeonhole me, and you're gonna make assumptions about me, and I don't want anybody to make assumptions. I want you to know who I am from what I present. And I think if I could go back and change anything, and I think going forward, and I really, you know, this is my advice to anyone going forward and anyone who might be in that situation. Just speak. Just speak. Let them feel however they want to feel. But baby, you are the one going on that TV screen. You are the one who is your face, and what you look like is the representation, not them. Speak. I think I would have gone back and spoke up, and I would have spoken up in specific ways. And honestly, I was raised by hairstylists. I did this hair, you see, I've done my make. I'm like, looking back, I'm like, girl, you should just don't in some ways, because it did make me sad when the season came out, the second season came out, and I was like, nah. The character I know Shannon Barnes to be, the girl I know Shannon Barnes to be, I made her middle name Elizabeth because I can. The girl I knew Shannon Elizabeth Barnes to be would have been Rico nastying it up in them hallways. Would have been Afro punking it up in them hallways. And there's a part of me that still to this day feels as though I owed it to the representation that Shan is and was. Like, what a beautifully revolutionary thing to have an alternative dark-skinned girl sit there in her goth and alt looks and makeup. I had that responsibility to her to make sure that story was told visually as best as possible. And I let my own fears get in the way of what she needed. And like, to me, she's not just a character, she's a part of me. She is a living embodiment of people I grew up with, of eras of my own life, of girls to come, of just young people to come. And I kind of wish I pushed a little bit more. I wish I pushed a little bit more so that I could really have stayed true to that, because I don't think my homegirl would have sat there in the same wig for 5 days in a row. And you know why I know she wouldn't have sat there in the same wig for 5 days in a row? You see that wig wall behind me? I don't stay in the same wig for the 5 days. Like me. Of course, Shan is switching it up. But anyways. Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm like low-key like kind of blowing through this makeup. Let's see. Okay. Another thing. So at this point, I'm really just, being open and honest. I don't even think there's like a real thesis for this conversation. I just wanted to chat and like kind of give more of an insight. Yeah. One of the big things I've noticed in getting this show is that people really struggle to leave room for the idea that like somebody may have to go backwards, right? Like, I'm gonna be fully transparent. I am fully throwing in applications everywhere to go back and get a full-time job, because let me kind of break down something that a lot of people don't talk about, because we'll never get into numbers because that's nobody's business. However, there's a big aspect of this industry where a lot of the money you make does not get pocketed by you. It is why I know it sounds like insane sometimes when we hear like so-and-so is getting paid X, Y, and Z amount of money for this show. That person is a brand, right? Like the moment you become a public figure, whether an actor or a musician or a TikToker, you're a brand. And like any brand, you have employees that you gotta pay. So what you take in, just know, you're not actually pocketing a lot of that, right? Like there are certain things, like, you know how people say free publicity? It's not. You know, certain things like that, right? And so I just, for my space, my loyal people, I want to get rid of this mindset that every person you see on your screen is rich past, they're no longer, like they're almost inhuman in their wealth. It's not, it happens, right? Like I'm not gonna pretend that it don't happen, but it's not a guarantee. And it doesn't need to be immediate. And if it doesn't happen immediately, that's okay. It'll happen when it happens, right? But I just really noticed I made people really uncomfortable when I'd really insinuate or really just let niggas know that I was no type of billionaire, millionaire, like, you know what I mean? And even now, when people are like, oh, like, what projects you got going on? And I'm like, baby, there's a writer's strike coming up. Like, I ain't got no projects. I'm trying to get a job. People look at me like I'm insane because they're like, but you were on TV last year. And I come in this most humble place to be like, it's not like I spent the year burning through my money. I try to sit on it. It's just the really, really unfortunate thing about this industry. And I remember when Sydney Sweeney talked about she can't go 6 months without working because she can't afford her life. People are really mad at that. And I understand, like, I get it, like, you, and especially with the person it was coming from, like, the messenger, like, people didn't really want to hear that. But I think in that moment, she was really speaking up for the girls like me, and who, we are first generation in this industry. So not only we are a brand that's got to feed the team, ain't nobody behind us covering rent this month. Nobody's behind us calling the aunt to be like, hey, can she do a voiceover for your little cartoon? We are first generation, which means that we have to sustain ourselves the entire time. And this is not an industry that in the beginning, when you first start, sustenance is easy. I watch opportunities go to my peers, rightfully deserved, that were just never offered to me because I look differently and I was not on the radar. Like, I'm not on the radar, even though I sat on that poster like everybody else, and people love Shan. I did not go on the radar for these brands and all that stuff because you got to do a lot more, and it sucks to say, but you got to do a lot more than be just a little series regular on a TV show for them to look at a little black girl like me and be like, let me throw every partnership and X, Y, and Z and every form of passive income at you. You gotta do way more than that, which is fair. And so because of that, I remember like Sydney's getting these lashes, and I remember sitting there like, but she's right. Like, part of the reason I'm going back to work is because I technically haven't worked since August, right? That's a long time when you're sustaining yourself in a brand to not be working. And honestly, being an actor is too important for me. And like my goals and the overall is too important for me to have such an ego that I don't go back to my roots a little bit and work to keep it, right? Like I tell people, I'm here to survive. So if that means I gotta serve y'all coffee, I'm going to survive, because I would like to survive long enough for the launch, for the slingshot to be let go. And I don't know how long that slingshot is gonna be pulling back for. So I need to survive for long enough for it to get let go, right? Quick interlude, please. I've been using this Juvia's Place matte Warrior 2 palette to create lip colors. I don't even bother with lipsticks anymore. It's just like not even worth it. I think we assume a lot in this generation. We assume what people got and we assume what they don't. And then the worst part is, in between the assumptions, niggas be lying. Pardon my French. People lie. Like a lot. Like often. About what they got and what they don't got. Like it'd be really easy to cape right now. Cape about what not having this job. Like act like, oh, I don't need that show, I'm better than him, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, I needed income. So it don't matter what creative differences I had in terms of the writing and how I was portrayed or how some of my peers were portrayed. It don't matter how I feel about it don't matter how I feel about anybody, anything that happened on that show. They kept my lights on. So yeah, I need that show, right? Like we can all fun and joke and act like we above it on Twitter, but like, you know, niggas need income. And in this industry, there's a lot of passive income that's available to people, but it's not available to everybody based on what you look like. Because some of that passive income probably would have come, you know, if I had different numbers, if I gained different attention. Like, see what I mean? Where it's like systemic, right? Like, honestly, I find that like the reality is like, because of the system that we're in, it's not very often that the blackest woman on that cast popped, whether on socials and like, and for these brands, socials and those passive incomes and like, and even, you know, it's not often that the pop happened immediately. So you're just not on people's radars, right? Like, I would tell people I'm on Gossip Girl, and they'd be like, oh, bro, really? And I'd show them the poster, and I could see in their brain, they're like, oh my God, there's a dark-skinned girl there. Cool. Unless they were black. I mean, you know, yeah. You know, y'all was always holding me down. But for real, everybody else, it was very much giving, oh my God, y'all, there's a dark-skinned girl right there. That's crazy. Hey, girl. It was very much that the entire time, which I find just so funny. Also, sorry I'm not looking directly into the lens, but the mirror is above y'all, so. But like, I think what's so funny about that is that it's like, I realize so much. I'm like, oh, it's not malice. It's just we as a society are kind of trained not to see. And when we do see, we're like, I love you. You're amazing. I actually love your character. Like, blah, blah, blah. But we're mostly trained not to see. And being invisible, it gets to you. And I think part of the reason I wanted to make this video is because I actually think there's a lot of people who, okay, done. I actually think there's a lot of people who might be in the pullback of your life, and you have faves and you have people you look up to and people you're inspired by, and you look at them and you're like, everything is so fucking easy for them. Pardon my French. They're just like, it is just a one way up. It's like, damn, that girl went from an assistant to a PA to a series regular, and now she gonna be here now. And you do so much comparison of yourself and others that you lose sight of yourself. You lose sight of what you are, what your potential is. You lose sight of what you're gonna be. And I feel almost as somebody who is creating a small brand, but a brand, and has a verification now. Shout out to them for finally giving that. But like, I feel as somebody who has those small things, like, even if I feel like only 10 people are listening, if 2 of those people can be like, oh, she's a real person who's really going through real life things and is like actually impacted, and life isn't just roses all the time. So my life doesn't need to be roses all the time. And it doesn't. It doesn't. I tell that to you and I tell it to myself. I kept thinking, like, what do I want Grace's space to be? Like, when I started this channel, I really just wanted to talk about makeup and skincare. I didn't know what I want to talk about. But I think for me, right now, when I do come to this channel, I just would like to be honest with you all. As much as I am legally allowed to be. But I would like to be as honest with you guys as I can be, so that people who do look up to me, when people do message me and they're like, do you have any advice? You know, they can look at this and be like, oh, this is the advice, right? You know, all in all, that is to say, the whole reason for this long video and why I decided to sit here and do my makeup and talk to you all and try to kind of get into the nitty and gritty of some of the stuff, is so that you kind of get to see a human side of a public figure. Okay. There's not that many of y'all for me to be out here thinking that okay, whatever. It's not the point. But for you guys to get a human side and to have that while I go on this journey to build a career that I want people to look up to, I stand in my truth so you guys can also stand in yours. You know, the colorism of this industry is tough. It's emotionally really tough. And being in that show, I experienced things that I wouldn't want for even my worst enemies due to it. But I came out on the other side, and I'd rather stand in my truth and give you guys kind of not a full window into everything, because you know some things is going to remain my business, but I would rather stand in my truth and give you guys a little bit more of that than be so focused on presenting you guys such a crystal clear image of, oh, everything's only up. Like, oh, the show canceled, but I have people banging on my door. They're not. They will, but they're not. Not right now. They will, but they're not doing it right now. And that's okay. Because I have you guys, I have this space, I have God, and I have a sense of peace knowing that no matter where I go, girl, stop dropping things. I have a sense of peace knowing that no matter where I go, the career I am building for myself, the legacy I'm building in myself, will always be in truth and in bringing others in and letting others feel seen through some of the things I experience. Anyways, this has been Get Ready With Me. My show got canceled, and the truth, some of the truth. Maybe I'll do a part 2. There's so many things, situations and things that I kind of left out, but I only really wanted to talk for as long as I had to put on makeup. This is where I'm at. I don't really like it here. It's scary, it's intensive, there's worries I never thought I would have, because prior to this whole experience, I'd built so much stability in my life. But you know what? I'm in my pullback. And if anyone else is in your pullback, you're going to get through it. We're going to get through it together. So yeah, my name is Grace, and welcome to my space. And if you ever want to feel safe, go ahead and come back.